Thanks a lot for joining the session. I know there are a lot of cool parallel sessions happening, but you still take a little time to be here and to listen to my stories. I'm happy to see all the lovely faces today in the morning. Good morning. I know probably I have some of the Pixar enthusiasts here, right? That's why, yeah, that's why you're here. OK, I get it. Also, probably because of the test reporting, partially. Cool. Yeah, I know. I want to set the tone or the expectation of this presentation up front so that if you want to still leave and go to another session, I give you an opportunity to run away. It's a disclaimer. No? I see some noddings. OK, fine. What are you going to take away today? So let's start with a simple thought. I have been hearing a lot during the conference, what if AI takes over our role, right? That's a constant concern of everybody's around us. I want to go back to the basics. I believe if our basics are strong, I think Richie mentioned in his presentation yesterday, if our basics are strong and we know what we're talking about, then we can cross-question AI, and we can leverage it for our own advantage. We can use the positive side of it and not just accept the outputs it is giving back to us. So it's going to be a basic talk, but I promise you I'm going to give you some good practices about test reporting that have worked for me, and that will definitely leave you thinking about some things once you leave the room. I still see people not leaving, so sure? Can we start? Cool. OK. I'm a mental health ally, too. This is a fun fact as well. I usually start my talks with taking a step back. A lot of information is going around. We forget to take a deep breath and just take a step back and think about how we are feeling about all these things which are around us. This is not for you, probably more for me, because I'm on the stage. I'm more nervous than you guys are there sitting down. So I'm going to take a deep breath. You too, think about your emotions, and then we're going to start. OK? All attention. Cool. Now I have your attention, right? So I'm going to bore you a little with my background story, because I'm going to talk about story narratives. So it's important that I set my story clearly and I have a base for it. I started working at Accenture 4.5 years ago. Accenture, probably some of you know it, it's a consultancy firm. And I realized it very quickly, what do people expect from consultants? It's like the clients, they want us to create a time machine in a day, probably, or they would expect us to find a unicorn in a forest over a weekend. So I thought, OK, I have to do some expectation management, for sure. And I realized it also very soon that it's extremely hard to explain a non-technical stakeholder your reports. It will be almost equally impossible or similar to explaining how Wi-Fi works to my grandparents. They don't understand anything. Probably explaining Wi-Fi to grandparents is easier than explaining a technical report to a stakeholder. So today, I'm not going to talk about metrics. I'm not going to talk about cool graphs. I'm not going to show you any pie charts, although it's about test reporting. But as I said, I'm going to go back to the basics, and it's not about pie charts. Test reports are also narratives, right? You agree. That means what we want to present is what we are doing, what worked for us, what did not work for us, what went right, what went wrong. It should have a proper starting, and it should have a proper end point. That's how a story works, right? So that's how you want to depict your test reports as a test narrative. And for that, you need a good starting point, a good ending point. And I thought, OK, to get that good, effective communication so that I can build trust with my clients, I thought, yeah, if it is something related to storytelling, I could probably learn from the best. And just with the raise of hands, how many of you agree that Pixar has some of the best storytelling ideas? Right? They can grab your attention from the beginning to the end, not just for children, but I think also for adults, at least for me. And I realized, OK, just out of curiosity, I Googled and I said, what is their mantra? What is it that's working for them? And funnily enough, I came across 22 Pixar storytelling ideas. This is their mantra, said by them, that worked for them. So it's like a list of 22 rules that they try to test their stories against it. I thought, OK, I read a couple of them, and I said, this might work for us in testing industry as well. Trust me, when we're going to look at a couple of Pixar storytelling ideas, you're going to realize that you can implement them not just for your reports. You can also implement them for redefining your test processes. You can also implement them for if you want to become a speaker next year. So it's just that you have to apply a couple of checklists, so to say. And I gave this checklist to my team members. It worked. And I said, OK, let me just share my knowledge with everybody around. Let's start. So the first rule that Pixar says is, what are the stakes? What happens if they don't succeed? What are the stakes? What happens if they don't succeed? I took a step back. There is a very important and a very easy question that we don't ask at all. Do we really need a report? We ask this question a lot later in the project cycle, when either we have invested a lot of cost, a lot of value in creating those reports, and they're not giving us equal benefits. Nobody is using them, or if someone is using them or just opening them, they don't know how to use them. So I said, we should always ask ourselves, how high are the stakes? What happens if I don't report it at all? Who does it affect? And funnily enough, mostly when it's like a low-risk activity or a technical release or less impact functionality change which is happening, probably you don't need a huge dashboard to represent that. And when now we talk about AIs, you can easily write a prompt and then it can generate, or X-ray. It can create reports in a few minor seconds with a couple of Jira query languages, and you can add your plugins, but you have to decide, do you actually need to report it at all? How high are the stakes? And this worked for me wonderfully because I could sometimes just go back to someone and tell them over an email, this is your result. And they said, OK, works for me. They don't need a report at all. How did it work for me? So this senior project manager, he came to me and he asked me, Udita, I have just 5 minutes. Can you explain me what's up? What's the status quo? And I said, 5 minutes? I would just need 5 minutes to explain my top 5 critical defects. So I realized, oh, I'm missing some immediate risks or some measures. This rule, I think Rob mentioned about meetings yesterday. This rule works for you, for your meetings as well. Ask yourself, is this meeting really important? Can you just communicate over a chat? Probably you don't need a meeting at all. So how high are the stakes? Still with me? Cool. Let's go. Rule number 2, know who is your audience. You can't report something until you don't know who are you reporting it for. You should know your stakeholders. Depending on your stakeholders, it depends the amount of detail you would want to add in your reports. So let's take an example. If you are creating a test report for an executive, right, then you should think about high-level summary, key risk, like immediate steps that we're going to take, and until when. If you're reporting something for your developers, then you say, OK, I need to put some technical information. I need to put some logs. I need to put some expected result. I need to put exactly that they understand what we're talking about. And if you are talking about a test manager, then they would like to know the coverage, the number of defects, critical defects that are blocking us, or what might be blocking us in completing our test executions, right? So the level of detail, it depends on a different person. Let's try to understand it with an example. So a scenario is a company is testing a login for a banking app, so login application, and the QA team must report informed test outcomes to different stakeholders. As I said, for developers, for test manager, for senior manager, your information or level of detail depends on the stakeholder. Test case 102 is failing, login failed using special character. You can also do some simple analysis for your dev team and say, OK, the login did not work, and this function specifically is throwing a null pointer exception. Then you say, OK, for a test manager, I can just tell them the critical defect we're talking about. But for an executive, they would like to know which critical defects, what are the measures, and what's the due date. Until when will we be done for them? And it's a very basic thing to think about, but extremely important. Again, you can apply it anywhere. Know your audience. What do they actually expect from you? And it just works for not test reports. It works for your test processes. It works for your test plans as well. Rule number 3, why must you tell this story? Again, this syncs in with rule number 1, value. What value is it bringing to your clients? Does it have a clear purpose? Does it have a clear objective? What problem is it solving? Is it really solving any problem at all? How closely does it sync with the business objective? And if you can answer these questions, then you know that you must tell this story. Right? OK, moving on. Rule number 4. I love this. It sounds very simple, but it's equally complicated. Simplify, focus, and hop over detours. With all the new technologies that come in the picture, come in the market, we try to complicate simple things. Rather, we should take 2 steps back, 3 steps back, and try to simplify everything for us. Right? Try not to use technical jargons, probably, and then everybody will be on the same page to have an effective communication. And I brought an example. So an automobile company is performing end-to-end testing before their big release to roll out a new interface. This is my good practice. You don't have to follow it however I'm following it. It's just a way for you to ponder upon. I always have a management summary. I try to summarize exactly the timeline, the progress in one line that we made, and overall status, just with the colors. Green or yellow, or obviously we have defined these legends as well, but trust me, half of the people only need this information, and then they don't need to see all the cool pie charts in your report. I try to create a report which even a kid would understand, so if they see these 3 green colors, they would probably say, oh, good to go. But the kids in my company, they need pie charts sometimes, and I try to explain them that that's not going to help, but if they want that, they want it. Let's try to understand with another example. It's the same scenario. I tried summarizing the information, so again, you can have a very key takeaways. You just say, this is the critical thing, this is the due date, it will be fixed until then, and done. With all the amount of information we can present in so many different forms, we think, OK, we should have a bar chart, we should have a pie chart, we should have this chart, this metrics, that metrics, but we try, or we forget to communicate the most basic things. So simplify, focus on what you really need to focus, and hop over the detours. this is one of the things that I love. I think probably everybody would have heard about elevator's pitch, right? Now, if the same senior project manager comes back to me and asks me, Udita, 5 minutes, explain me the status quo, I said, okay, I can do that. I use these 3 I's: issue, impact, and implementation. I should be able to define the issue precisely in a simplified way, tell them the impact of it. I think Rob mentioned it, Richie mentioned it, Tariq mentioned it. If you are able to define the cost it is incurring to you or the negative impact it might have, then everybody would instantly emotionally be related to it. And then you are triggering an emotion in them. And they understand this is the impact if they don't deliver. And with the impact, you always go with the solution, with a couple of measures. This is how you're going to implement it, so that they're not worried only about the problem, but they also know that this is what we are going to do to fix the issue. 3 I's. With me? Issue, impact, and implementation. Okay? Rule number 5. You admire a character for trying, not for their success. Will AI replace us? I don't think so. We can work with it. Human experience, this is what Tariq mentioned yesterday. If you focus not on the final outcome, what an AI application is giving us, or if you don't focus on the end result, but you know what is the journey we are talking about, then we can 100% try to question what we are getting at the end as an outcome. We can always cross-question and counter-question and ask, okay, but how did it reach to this result at the end? And for that, you admire a character for trying. You should know what their journey looked like. So it worked for us in a way. When you implemented a change, I think you express a challenge. This is a problem that you're having, and then you showcase an outcome, right? And then you have a challenge and an outcome. In between, you take some action steps, you take a plan, you write down your efforts, so that you know for sure these are the action plans or efforts that we took. This worked for us, and this is something that did not work for us. So this effort column is also extremely important. You can't just directly reach to an outcome. You want to understand this is the problem statement. These are the things that worked in a retrospect, so that you can go back and try to implement in other projects as well. So journey is equally important. Integrating AI. This is the diagram that I created with a very beloved colleague, Lalit. We were presenting in a conference, and we said, OK, let's just try to picturize it. We keep on saying keeping testers in the middle of all the AI changes that we are talking about. How could we, with respect to test reporting, right? Let's think about it. AI can generate, we just saw the X-ray sponsor video. AI can generate 10,000s, thousands cases in a click now. But it's on us that we decide that this is the most important critical functionality for us that we have to focus on. And out of those thousands of test cases, we say probably these 100 are the most important because there was a cross-budget functionality which was not working for us, and we say, okay, let's just try to focus on this because we have a time crunch, and now we only want to focus on something which is important. So it's more risk-based, and for that you need a tester in control who actually decides that out of these thousands test cases, probably we do not need to execute all the thousands. You have to then base your testing on risk. Also, it worked for us in a way. So initially, in a traditional approach in a test reporting, we used to say, I couldn't bring that here because of data issues, but I can explain it to you. We initially used to say, OK, we have 30 defects. That could mean something for a stakeholder. It could be alarming, or it could be, yeah, I don't care. But now we tried clustering the defects into different categorization, where we said, this defect new requirement, this is a defect unclear requirement, this is a defect infrastructure issue, and this is a defect which is test data issue, probably. And then we realized, OK, these defect clusters can help us out later on to look at what is the major challenge that we are facing. Usually, if before the release we only get test data issues, then we have to focus on that specific cluster. And that's how you can think about, OK, let me find my focus areas. And that's where you would definitely need a tester. What we are trying to do is to make our AI model learn to recognize this, but it takes time. And rule number 6, if you were your character, how would you feel? So until now, we know that we need a report. We know who are we creating it for. We know what it is about. And we probably are sure that this is what we want to show. But once a tester, always a tester, right? You should test your own reports as well, or you should test your own test processes as well. Try to replace yourself and think about, as an end user for whom you created your test report. And then take a step back. Am I able to understand this? Or did just what I presented, does it make sense? If you are a senior project manager and if you want to take a decision to go live next week, does your report answer that question for you? So you empathize with the person for whom you are creating, and trust me, it fits not just for your test reporting, it fits for your processes, it fits for your products as well. So if you were your character, how would you feel? This is the rule number 6 from Pixar. As I said, everything is a test narrative around us. You can try putting these checklists as a tester, test reporter, test manager, as a project manager, as a product manager, and you can define a very good test narrative when you use these rules provided by Pixar as a checklist. And it will work. I hope it will work for you, and you can create a very good test narrative for yourself. With that, I would like to thank all of you for joining me for this session, and you can ask your questions.
Wow, thank you, Udita. That was really good. I normally never take photos of slides, and I took a bunch of photos.
Thank you.
And I even wrote down checkout. You can find Pixar's rules on somewhere on the net, right?
Exactly. It's from Emma Coates, 22 Pixar storytelling ideas.
OK, wow. Because I see that applying to a whole bunch of not just testing, but to business in general. OK, let's see. Do we have any questions? Oh, my goodness. Do we have what? Let's start with this one. What's your favorite Pixar movie?
Mine is Up. I love it. I don't know, it's just, you could emotionally relate to that movie. I love it. Thank you for the question, though.
Ratatouille for me.
Yes.
OK. Do you have report templates, or do you use built-in reports from testing tools?
We have report templates. Exactly as I mentioned, if you start using plugins, definitely you can use them as an inspiration, but it can get very overwhelming very quickly, because these reports could give you, I don't know, X amount of information that you might not even need it. So you have to identify for yourself, this is the report probably for your senior manager. That's why I make sure that for all the senior managers, I have that management summary at the top of my page. That's one of the best practices. I can't express it enough how good it worked for us, because they just came to that page, did not even bother me, looked at the management summary and went away.
OK. How would you handle management's weekly complaints that reports aren't green when they accurately show reality?
I don't care about the complaints, though. Our job as test managers or project managers is to increase transparency. People expect us to be political. That's not how it should be. Our job is to increase transparency to an extent that the stakeholders can make an informed decision. That's our role. If they are able to make an informed decision, even if the decision is not to go live, then we are saving a huge amount of effort at the end when we have to fix these issues in the production. And that's your job. I consider ourselves like I don't want to call gateway keepers, I hate that term, but still, it's our responsibility that we increase the transparency before we put anything out there.
Okay, here's one. Is Cucumber a good tool for this approach of reporting because of BDD?
I agree. I think you can start with that because, as I said, right, Jira X-ray could give you instantly some things. In my screenshots as well, I showed the critical defects and everything. You can use them to your leverage, but you have to make a final decision. Is that something that you need?
Okay. Where can we dive deeper into this Pixar storytelling method of reporting?
Actually, it's not for reporting. They didn't create it for reporting. I just translated it for reporting. They created it for their own storytelling narration. The rules that I shared, this is how Pixar have written it down. They check these rules, they have 22 rules, against all the movies that they create, and then it's like they're testing criteria, and if these criteria fit to the movie result, then they say, we have done a pretty good job. And I just translated these rules to test reporting. You can translate them to any aspect.
Would you recommend testers to take storytelling courses like Pixar in the box?
Why not? Let's get creative. That's our responsibility, right? If AI does the monotonous or the repetitive task, then that's our advantage, that we can work on creative strategies, we can work on creative test processes, we can be more creative.
How would you integrate this method with a Lua reporting tool? Which reporting tool had been the best for you?
I don't use any extra plugins when I'm being very honest. My client is extremely strict with their data compliance. They don't let us put any data out of the Jira plugin. So we use only the inbuilt Jira Confluence tools. As I said, you can use as many tools as you want. But that's why it was so important that we go back to the basics, because once AI can generate all the reports for us, or these tools can create so much, or to a report to an extent that looks professional, but probably we don't need it. So you can use whatever tool. You can use Allure. I haven't used it. I mean, in this project, I haven't used it. It will work for you, but always take 3 steps back. Try to put your checklist for your reports and say, does it answer the questions? That what is your report targeting to?
Okay, we are perfectly out of time. So these last 2 questions, I would ask Mikhail and Tatiana, please find Udita and ask her as she's here in this room or wandering around the conference. Let's give a big round of applause to Udita for this wonderful presentation.